Before we get started, I want you to take 2 seconds and just hit that subscribe button or follow if you haven't already. I would really appreciate it. Really, really appreciate it. And now previously on Real Garbage. He did it over a 3-day weekend, all the time, always 3-day weekend.
Every time a 3-day weekend.
Broke in through the air conditioning ducts, and then he broke into the safe, planted explosives in it, blew it open, robbed it, closed it, used plaster. He's carrying plaster in there. Where are you getting the water?
This guy's like
plaster.
He's drywalling. He's feathering it in there.
And now coming up on this episode of Real Garbage.
It is funny because the first few times you smoke it, nothing happens, and you're like, am I high? I think I am. And then when you actually get high for the first time, you're like, whoa, this is what, I'm high.
Terrifying. You got any kids? And he's like, they're there. I don't know where I went, but I don't want to go back. Boop, 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 boop. Excuse me. It's going to be a fun one. I'm joined by Darren Millar, and we dig into the sex thriller, you could call it, Between Worlds with Nicolas Cage. We found it on Netflix. This movie is ridiculous, but we had a blast reviewing it. So stick around. We're going to get right into it right after a quick word from our fake sponsors.
Want to lose weight, but you don't want to go to the gym and exercise? Well, you get yourself a good case of diarrhea. Hit up Taco Time every Tuesday for Taco Tuesday. $1.39 tacos will get things running smooth. Watch the pounds shed right from your body after every time you go to Taco Tuesday at Taco Time.
That's good. Arriba. Do you wish you were cooler? Do you wish you had the joie de vivre? Do you wish the ladies were dripping off you? What do you need? You need snakeskin boots. You need snakeskin boots. Come and get them. Any kind of boot that you like, snakeskin boots, the ladies will be at your heels. Boys, who else wears snakeskin boots that you know of? Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage, a representative of snakeskin boots since 1967.
I was going to do a Nicolas Cage impression, but...
Real garbage.
That's what I thought about doing a Nicolas. I was like, can I do that as and I was like, I can't do the Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage impression does not come naturally to me.
Well, after having Nash on here and just knocking it out of the park, I don't even feel comfortable doing it anymore. Way to go, Nash.
I know. He gets it as like, just wait a second. I got, and now a perfect Nicolas Cage impression.
National treasure. National treasure.
So good.
Welcome, everyone, to Real Garbage, the #1 Nicolas Cage podcast in Brentwood Bay. How you doing, Darren?
I'm good, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic, man. Thanks for coming on the show again. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This is I told you earlier, I was like, this is way past my bedtime. I know. I know it's still light out. But usually I have my cardigan on now, and I'm like, ooh, I'm nestling to bed with my Newsweek.
Got a cup of tea steaming.
Right. Yeah.
What were we talking about before we started here?
I think we're talking about the wonders of the internet.
Oh man, okay, we're talking about the internet. Have you seen
the internet? God.
Have you heard of this thing called the internet?
It's incredible.
There's robot. Have you seen the robot delivery bots, like the food delivery robots?
No.
Oh my God. So I was watching Kimmel. That's one of my guilty pleasures is watching the late night shows, just the clips on YouTube. And there's 6-wheeled. They're about, I don't know, this big, maybe like 2 feet tall, 2 or 3 feet long, and they have 6 wheels, and they just wheel around like on the sidewalks and stuff. They're food delivery robots, but they're not that good at getting around, so there's like compilation videos of people helping them. So I'd be like, oh, hey, let me help you there, little guy, and they're pushing it through the snow, and the creepy thing is like, it'll thank them. It's like, hey, there you go, fella, and it's like, thank you. As it drives away, they're trying to drive up over curbs and stuff. We are getting way too cushy with the robots.
I feel like this is a great opportunity to get some free food. Just see one of those robots and you're just like, bam, kick it. But you got to trust that people are going to be good and not kill your robot and take whatever. You're like, oh, what do you have? Where did you just come from? You just came out of the Pad Thai restaurant? Excellent.
Well, that I would, because remember when Amazon was doing the drone delivery?
No.
they were delivering stuff with drones.
It's like I've been asleep since 1986.
I thought you were on the internet. I think it was a thing that actually happened. They started doing it. I don't know if it's a frequently used service, the drones, because people, from what I hear on the internet, was that people were shooting them down. It was like, shooting down drones, stealing packages.
Well, that's what they do it. They're going to do it either way. They're going to like steal it off your doorstep, or they will shoot your slingshot your drone out of the sky. That's what I like about science fiction, because even though I didn't hear about the drone robots. I know I did read a science fiction story about drone delivery, and I was like, that's wild, but this is going to come true. And now I find out, I'm like, it has come true. I just didn't know about it.
We're living in the future now, man. It's just, it happened. It happened slowly. We're like frogs in boiling water. We're slowly. Yeah, apparently that's bullshit. That whole theory of like, if you put a frog in water and slowly heat it up, it'll boil to death.
I brought some frogs. We're going to get on the water.
Let me put the pot on the stove. But I was listening to some audiobook, and they're like, that doesn't happen.
Who's going to be the asshole who's going to test that? You'd be like,
well, just think like,
in the name of science, Herr Goebbels, we'll put some
boiling
frogs. Yeah.
What does it smell in here? I'm just making soup. Yeah, those robots though. It's like just because like there's a video of a woman walking her dog, and the dog's just freaking out because this thing's got like 6 headlights on the front. It's super lit up. It's all LED, so it's just blindingly bright. And these things just roll around town. First of all, they're super slow. So let's say if I ordered food from the lodge, which is like a 15-minute walk, that thing has to go uphill. It's gonna be, you got to cook the food half hour. Let's say 40 minutes, depending on what it is. Then you got to put it in that robot, and it's going to take another hour to get here if it doesn't get hung up on the roundabout.
Right. Just like you're better off to pay Billy, who's got a BMX. You'd be like, hey, dude, I'll give you $5. Can you run down there?
Absolutely. Then you're supporting local business. You're not supporting the robots.
How long? So the robot, it must have a heating tray in it or something to keep stuff warm.
I would assume so. And I would think there's got to be some sort of safety precaution, like safety measures in place. Like you're saying, like, you could shoot that thing and crack it open and steal the food. There's got to be like dye packets or something in there, like kind of like ATM money. You crack it open and poof.
The great robot delivery heist of 2021.
There's a short film in there somewhere, or a feature film. Just like because we start with food, right? Then what? Because I've heard that Uber, so in the States, if weed gets legalized on a federal level, Uber's going to start delivering weed.
That's what I would, could you have a weed bot? I feel like a weed bot, like a food bot is a big target, food delivery bot. I feel like a weed delivery bot is a massive target. Where people like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I feel like most hardcore stoners who are like, man, I can't afford to buy weed on my own. Let's rob this robot. They're not smart enough to crack those robots off. They'd pick it up. The thing would get tracked to their place. They'd get arrested.
They make friends with the robot. Dude, you're okay.
Thank you. I have to say, loving your podcast. I've thrown it on here when I've been like cooking dinner and stuff, and I'm just listening to you guys in the background. And I was laughing at episode 5. So if you guys don't know, Darren Millar is one of the hosts on the Ill Informers podcast. You can find it on YouTube, everywhere else you get your audio podcast.
Go and download it.
Yeah, go listen to it right now. It's really funny. But that episode 5, the intro wars, you guys are talking about, you brought up how back in school, was it high school or junior high? You had to perform a song in front of the class as like an end project.
Oh, yeah. That was for, that was University of Victoria.
That was UVic?
Yeah, man. This was a university. I paid
I thought it was like grade
$700 for this class. And it was a great class, but it was one of those things. I was sitting at the end. I'm like, I need to take another class so I can get enough credits so I can get my degree, which I'll never use. Don't go to school, kids. Drop out.
Save your money.
Get a trade. Become a plumber. And then that's exactly what I did. I took a class. I was like, this Beatles class. I was like, this looks amazing. So I signed up for that and went and it was all project based. So the teacher, God love her, complete flake, was just like, she's like, everything should be a project. So you had to do one of the one guy I partnered up with, we did a Yoko Ono, was we did Project on Yoko Ono. So as the presentation to the class, we just got in a bed because John Lennon and Yoko Ono had their bed sit in Montreal or Toronto, and we just presented a report there and just had samples of Yoko Ono's music and visual art and stuff that we presented while we lay in a bed at the front of class.
So hold on, you brought a bed into the classroom?
Well, I think actually we just brought like 4 or 5 pillows and a big comforter, lay down at the front.
bed.
Yes, sorry, we're not. We were in a Beatles class. We weren't that motivated. And one of the projects, she said, everyone, I don't know if you could do that now, but everyone has to play music, pick a Beatles song and do it. She's like, I don't give a fuck if you've got music ability or not. Figure it out, a cappella, whatever, and it was pretty fun. That's probably all the other classes I took in university, all the political science and the anthropology and the history classes of whatever. It's like, whew, I'm just like, but the Beatles class, I'm like, the most useless class I took is the one that stayed with me, and I love it.
That's hilarious. Why would that even be a class? I'm just curious.
I have no idea. It's like a modern cultural study, 20th century cultural study class. I don't know, but it feels like anyone could teach that class, or not anyone. She's a very talented musician.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was probably a music teacher at UVic, so actually teaching jazz or classical music, and they were like, good. And she was a massive Beatles fan. She's like, hey, how about I teach this Beatles class? Would that be cool?
Well, it just makes me want to like inquire as to how hard it is to get a class. Like if I'm really good at something, could I just be like, hey, I got this class idea?
Talk to our friend Patrick Boyle, who's an acting professor up at UVic and a doctor of jazz.
I have seen him playing the trumpet in his profile picture.
Oh yeah, and apparently I don't know this because I don't know a lot about music, but apparently, and I've got friends in town who are musicians, and they're like, Dr. Boyle, they're like, he's a motherfucker, like he's like the trumpet player in Canada. He's like the dude. Yeah. So I don't know this, but these are from people who know more than I do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've met him. I've seen pictures of him, but I don't think I've actually met him in person.
He's a sweetheart. He's a sweetheart. Him and his wife Jenny, and she's got the Make House sewing place. So go take some classes.
Oh man, you want to talk about this awful Nicolas Cage movie?
I watched this movie I watched it last night.
Me too.
And then I watched a little bit of the beginning again today. And this has been an emotional roller coaster for me because I have went through periods of hating this movie and then thinking it is brilliant, and then thinking some of it's completely awful dog shit, and some of it is. But then there's moments where I was like, it could have been so great. What did you think? I don't.
So kind of the same thing. Like in the first 5 minutes, I'm going, okay, yeah, this is wow. What have I got myself into? And then 15 minutes in, I'm going, whoa, like this, the writing is brutal. The acting is even worse. Like I texted my I guess I could say girlfriend. I'm not sure if it's official yet or not.
What? Stop.
Girl I'm seeing.
Okay.
I text her and I'm like, I'm watching this Nicolas Cage movie. The writing is so bad and the actors are making it worse because I felt like the chick that played Julie, when she read the script, she was like Christopher Walken, just no punctuation at all. None. Like the line would be like, and then and she's supposed to pause there, and she'd just go, and then like, whoa, what, huh?
Yeah.
You're supposed to pause. There's a period there. Just take a second, take a breath, think about what you're going to say, and then,
Some kind of like line reading. You're like, who? Well, she's the actor from Run Lola Run.
I've seen her. I've never seen Run Lola Run, but I've seen her in something else. I just couldn't figure out what it was. And I honestly didn't want to give her the credit of looking on IMDb to find out because this was garbage.
Well, because she was Run Lola Run was like a huge art house hit. I think it was a German movie because I think she's German. So it was one of those like really big lauded movies, and she's been a world famous like global actress since then. But you're right, she was like. I'm like, are you going to put any effort in at all?
None. The only effort she put in was the sex scenes.
Yeah.
Okay, this is all right. This is cool. Hold on. Okay,
yeah.
before we get too far ahead of
There's a
ourselves,
few. There's a few key scenes we have talked about. We'll get to it.
would you like to tell the listeners and viewers what Between Worlds is about?
Oh my God. If I can figure it out. Between Worlds is about Nicolas Cage plays a down on his luck truck driver, widower and parenter, a dead kid and wife. And he comes across a woman who is psychic, and her daughter is in trouble, is in a coma, and she's got to get her daughter back from the brink of death. And when the daughter comes back from the brink of death, something's not quite right.
The dead
That's
have
right.
unfinished business. Wow, this starts off with a 3-minute long drowning scene,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm thinking, okay, what is happening here? This person fell under ice. All right, cool. I'm looking at the time. I'm like, all right, it's been a minute and a half. Okay, it's been 2 minutes. I'm like, how long is this going to go for? It's roughly 3 minutes of this weird, creepy underwater scene. I'm like, oh, it's dead. Okay, that must be his dead daughter. Nope, it's someone else. Opens her eyes, swims up to her body. Because I think this is what she explained later as her scene where she first had her out-of-body experience. Because this woman can escape her body. Her soul can leave her body and she can go to the other side.
Yeah, she can go to like the world of souls or something like that. But that was something, when I watched that, I thought, oh, this movie isn't going to be, this is like late period Nicolas Cage. I feel like
2018.
people, like the same way I had a Beatles class, people are going to have Nicolas Cage classes in 40 years and they're going to watch these movies and be like, oh, what can you do? I don't care if you can act or not, but you need to come up and you need to do a Nicolas Cage soliloquy, whatever. I thought that movie was going to be, it had such a like a European art house feel, which I like that because I'm a bit of a wanker, and I was like, oh, this will be really, really good, and it fell apart.
This was this female director and writer and producer. She did all three. It was just her third film. I felt like she didn't have somebody sitting next to her going, hey, maybe we should try something a little different. Because like I did like her, like you said, it's kind of art house style. I did enjoy the cinematic aspect of this movie was really good. Cool shots, creative framing and editing.
Yeah.
I did like that. It was creative, but it just wasn't supported with good writing. And you need good writing. Like this was some of the worst. Sorry, lady. This was some of the worst writing I've ever seen in a movie.
But I also wonder, because you're right, there was like the drowning scene, but even when it opens up right after that, Nicolas Cage is a truck driver, and he's in the parking lot, and it's a low frame on the snakeskin boot, and then when he goes in, you sort of find out like he's down and out, and he owes his boss some money, and he goes into the store, and even just that reverse butt crack shot, that was great.
It was nasty.
But all that kind of and then the writing was just not there at all. But I feel like Nicolas Cage probably half wrote this movie. Like she's like
so?
I feel like she would come in and she'd be like, well, what's the script? The script says this stuff, which is good, that I've spent 18 months on. And he went, I can't do the Nicolas Cage. He went, how about if I just do this instead? Is that better?
What if I just do my own words in this scene? Maria, I could just ad-lib. Yeah, I can ad-lib.
She goes, do you have a wife and children? He goes, oh, yeah, I do. Right here. Oops, they're dead.
Oh.
Wife and daughter, you like?
Oh, beautiful.
Oops, they're dead.
Wow. Yeah, because they meet up real quick here. So he has the phone call with his boss. He's like, I'm tapped. I can't pay you anything at all. Then he goes inside, buys some stuff, and he's like, keep the change. Yeah. I'm like, well, you said you're tapped. I guess you're not tapped. But in the midst of this, we get a quick cutaway to a girl being lifted off the floor in a bathroom stall, and you're like, oh man, someone's getting choked. This is not good. And then minutes go by. I'm like, what happened? What was that bathroom thing all about? And then all of a sudden, you hear a muffled like, well, as she's being choked, I don't know why she's screaming. And he's like, I'm going to go save the day. And he like busts in there, and a little throwback to Con Air. He's like, we don't treat women like that down here. Kapow. And neither one of them protests to what he's doing.
No.
Like, so there's a dude choking this woman in the bathroom, and He comes in, he's like, we don't treat women like that. And the guy's like, wait, smash in the face. And he's still conscious, and he's not going like, hold on, buddy, there's a story here. And even she's going, don't hurt him. Hold on.
Yeah.
Like, give him some information. Be like, no, listen, he's choking me. It's all part of a plan. He's paying me for it, or vice versa, or whatever. Because it just seems like she just got some random dude. Does she just hang around truck stops looking for random
Well, if you
dudes
want someone to
choke her?
choke you, that's where you go. You go to a truck stop and you're
good
like,
point.
hey, would you mind? He's like, whoa, I thought you'd never ask.
Oh, I could do more than just choke you. No, choking's fine. I just need to go to the other side for a little bit. How do you pitch that to somebody? Listen.
Yeah. Like I said, you go to, he's like, whatever that's your thing.
Say no more, lady. I'll choke you. And she busts that line out like 3 times in this movie. You need to choke me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was there's a couple scenes later on where she's like, come on, choke me. And he's like, no, I don't think so.
I don't need you to be possessed by someone else. So he throws out this line. Why don't you, next time you wrestle a man gator, is he insinuating that she's a gator of some sort?
I think so.
They're
I think
not,
that was...
Because they're in...
There's a gator theme that runs heavily through this movie. Also, later on, he's wearing a gator shirt. Very nice, shiny.
Well, they're in Mobile, Alabama, right? Mm-hmm. So there's nothing to do with gators in Alabama, is there?
Oh, there's got to be at least 5 or 6 good gator farms down there where you can, And I think wrestling gators, it seems like that would be the kind of place where you'd be able to go and wrestle a gator just on the weekend for fun. Like here you go paddleboarding. Down in Mobile, Alabama, you wrestle gator.
We're taking the family to wrestle gators. Maybe our American listeners can leave a comment in the area below. Tell us what Alabama is.
What's your best wrestling gator experience? Gator wrestling experience.
So he follows her outside after he's like, I just saved you. And then she's like, no, you didn't. You screwed it up. And he's like, what? Okay. And they go outside. She's jumping into her truck because she's a truck driver.
I didn't figure that.
It seemed like she was jumping into his truck. But they didn't nothing got explained in this movie.
No, and that's one of the weaknesses. Like I think of the writing is usually you'd be like explicitly clear about what's going on, but there was a few times that they're like that interferes with Nicolas Cage being Nicolas Cage, so we're just gonna steamroll right through.
That was the one thing I was looking for explanations of everything in this movie, and it was like, nope.
Yeah,
we're not gonna tell you how that got here. We're not gonna tell you how he went there. We're not gonna tell you why this person's here.
Just trust the process.
And she just opens right up to him. Like, this is where she's like, you got any kids? And he's like, they're dead. And then she's like, well, I got a daughter and she's in a coma this morning because she just got into an accident. And I'm like, okay, so she got into a motorcycle accident. She's in a coma now. And you need to, and she's like, I have to use my magic powers to, he's like, well, hold on, tell me in the truck. So they start driving and she just, tells him everything.
Which is a very, like all the way through this movie, they're a very red flag kind of couple. Like you're just like for on both sides. Like there's a lot of stuff that he does that she should have been like, fuck, get out of here. And a lot of stuff that on the other side should have been like, get lost. Like there's not, they were both not very stable people.
It just seems like toxic people like that just attract each other. And it's like, hey, we should be horrible with each other.
Take me.
It's so now they go straight to the hospital. Did I miss something?
No, I was just going to say also, which is a theme throughout when he's talking to his boss, which I just want to note this for later, but he's sitting in the truck popping no-dos, swilling on a flask, and I think smoking a joint or cigarette. I just like, he goes hard through the whole movie. It's fantastic.
I feel like he did it for real. Well, he was fake smoking the weed in the truck. You could tell. I hate when people fake smoke weed. But I feel like he was
How about now when they CGI smoke in?
Oh, was that in the car later? Because that car should have been full of cigarette smoke.
No, that was with the nurse lady,
the voodoo nurse.
Yes, totally.
The mysterious voodoo nurse,
which is sort of weird. That's a trope through the whole thing. You're like, oh, of course. Here comes the African American nurse. But she's gonna be mystical? Oh, of course she is gonna be.
Of course she's gonna have a Jamaican accent too. Really? It's 2021. They show up at the hospital and she's out of the coma. So she's out of the coma. She's got there's no tubes or anything. Like I figure if you're in a coma, you got feeding tube, breathing tube, you're on a respirator, all that stuff. She's just
hanging out. A coma's just like a nice nap.
Yeah. Oh, you're awake. Like there's no like, oh my God, you're not in a coma anymore. Just like, how are you doing, honey? Like you seem really chill about her being in a coma when you left and her being awake now.
And that is one of those things, like, well, like you said, why is she not at the hospital initially? Surely she could have found someone at the hospital to choke her out. What made her go to...
That's always my second option. If I can't find anybody at the truck stop, I go to the hospital.
hospital,
Hey, listen, you want to choke me? Say no more.
yeah.
And this is where we discover, because... Oh, no, she hasn't gone to the other side yet,
No.
because it's still her daughter. And her daughter's like,
Yeah.
who's that guy? And there's Joe. What was his last name? Majors.
Joe Majors.
Joe Majors.
That's the tipper later. Yeah.
Oh, crap. Spoiler alert. I ruined it. This movie ruined
Don't watch
itself.
the movie.
And she starts to slip back. She's like, and this is where you get the idea that she has gone to the other side, where all the other lost souls are. 'Cause she's like, I don't know where I went, but I don't want to go back. Boop, 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 boop. And then Julie's like, oh, damn it. We got to go to the stairwell. And this is where she's like, you got to choke me.
Yeah. And I don't know, is that how comas work? You just in and out of a coma like that? And you like...
Well, I've brought it up on the show a few times. There's that old show, The Odyssey, from like way back. Did you ever watch it?
No.
It was on CBC, after school show about a kid who was in a coma for like 5 seasons. And he lived a whole other life in the coma. And that's where Ryan Reynolds got his acting start.
Oh, really?
Ryan Reynolds was the military villain in the coma.
This sounds vaguely familiar. I may have watched it, but
It's called The Odyssey. It's worth. I'll show you the intro after. It's
Okay.
like, man, it was all like VHS effects kind of thing. It was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
It was ahead of its time.
Yeah, well, exactly ahead of its time, because it's like VHS effects in this movie as well. There was some pretty poor.
I couldn't find the budget for this movie, but I found that it made $146,000 total. But I looked everywhere for the budget and couldn't find it.
Yeah. And I'm sure the budget was something like, I wonder how a movie like this gets made. And I think it's probably mostly German and UAE money. Like someone goes and they put together the movie and they're like, I've got the budget. I've got all this stuff. Can I get $6 million to make this movie? And everyone's like, no. And then you go, I got Nicolas Cage. You're like, okay, here's your $6 million.
Here's your money.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the movie is. Man, yeah, because this, like, I feel like this one, she maybe paid for it herself. Like maybe she had family money or something. She's like, listen, I want to make a movie. Okay, here, honey, take the money. It's awful. Just don't tell her. So now she gets choked in the stairwell, goes to the other side, and we get a glimpse of, or we hear. Yeah, this was a confusing other world because it was just a hospital room with her, the daughter, Billy, and Nicolas Cage's wife and daughter.
Yeah.
Their
But I
souls are hanging out
couldn't tell the two women apart. Like Nicolas Cage's, I didn't understand when I first watched it that I was like, that lady at the door. Like I was like, the wife's there, but they picked, which I'm like, you need to do that for me.
Yeah.
Not pick two, 125-pound blonde ladies who like look extraordinarily, like they both tried out for the roles. Like, and they just went, okay, you can be Billy and you can be the wife. And I'm like, they look too much like, put a fucking black-haired wig on the wife or something. Like, do something different.
See, and this is where you know it was directed by a woman because she's like, everybody will get it. Listen,
Like,
no, we won't.
No, you got to be really explicit.
Make them different. Make one blonde, one a brunette.
Yeah.
At least we'll know that difference. Because I didn't think that was her either standing by the door. I thought it was Billy.
And that's exactly what I thought as well until I watched it this morning, and then I was like, and I had to be like, what happened? I don't understand what went on, and I got to do this podcast, and that was and that's where it was like, okay, it's clear, but just not clear enough on a first watch. Should have just made her whatever. Made her 900 pounds, put her in a wheelchair. I'd be like, that would have been great.
I made a comment way down the road here. Said, what did his wife look like? Fat? Question mark.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, hot. Because, if she was fat and then she got put in the body of a smoking hot 18-year-old, you're like, he's like, of course he's going to. Like, I think I don't know about shit.
And that's what they made very clear. She is 18. She is definitely 18.
She's 18.
The actress is 29, but she's definitely 18. Yeah, because that was the other thing, too. You knew when she came back the first time, it was the daughter. She didn't know who Joe was. And then when she came back the second time, she was a fucking creep.
And we knew it was her because in the little flash to the soul world there, she's laying down all these...
it was her. I didn't know what was going on.
Well, the only reason that I knew was because she was delivering lines like, I don't do that well on my own, Joe. And why do you always leave me alone? And I don't know if she was saying Joe or not, but I'm just putting that in there. And then when she comes back in Billy's body, she's like, no, don't leave me alone. I don't do that well on my own. Why do you always like, she's saying repeating those lines that were in that little flash to the soul land. So I was like, oh, okay. So this is obviously the wife now. And she's looking at him with like the doe eyes, like, no, just let me look at you. I'm like, okay, it's totally the wife.
I'm glad you got that because I was sitting there going like something's up. I'm not sure what is she a demon now? Like what's going on?
They could have added some music to make it eerie. So like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, something's different here. 'Cause this one I was really paying attention to because I ate a weed brownie. I'm not smoking weed. I'm just eating it.
that's
I
good.
ate a weed
Healthy
brownie.
choices.
So I was like really hella focused. I was like, this is hilarious. This is terrible. And yeah, so I caught that. So I was like, okay, now the old switcheroo's been pulled. And this is like 13 minutes into
Yeah.
the movie. Like it happens. Everything happens very fast.
Which is, I like that. I do like that in movies. And now, like, everything's got to be off the hop. Because if you watch anything from, 40 or 50 or 60 years ago, it's very slow. And it still can be really good. But now everything happens quickly. But when it happens super quickly and in a very unconvincing way, you're just like, oh.
Well, you miss a lot. Like this was the movie. This is a movie where you definitely had to pay attention because if you didn't, you'd miss like the feet coming off the floor in that stall shot. Or there's one point where we're coming up to like 3 days later, and I'm like, whoa, that was like 2 seconds. And then I was looking, but I'm like, had I been looking down making notes, I would have missed that completely.
And would have went, what happened? Now they're bringing her home from the hospital. And
How we get here? I want to make a comment about this Julie, this mom, because listen, your kids are going to have friends. They're not all going to be A+ friends. These two other guys that ride motorcycles with Billy show up. They're like, hey, they look distraught and sad and like heartbroken that their friend is in the hospital. And they're like, hey, Mrs. Whatever, we just came to see how Billy's doing. She's like, she's in the hospital. How do you think she's doing, moron? I'm like, whoa, lady. And so she just basically pinned the blame on these two. I'm like, your daughter has a mind of her own. You bought her a motorcycle. Or I don't know where she got the motorcycle from. That's another question. Where'd she
they
get the
were,
motorcycle?
yeah, mom bought her the motors for Christmas. She's like, you're going to ride it? Oh my God.
How dare you?
But those two buddies, yeah, because initially she tells them to get lost. One of the buddies, the really dopey looking one, is
So dumb.
is Hopper Penn. So is Sean Penn's kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is bonkers. So I was like, and that, you're like, how do you get into movies? You're like, make sure your dad's a famous movie actor.
It's a little bit of nepotism there,
Yeah.
I guess. He's totally Spicoli in this.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
Just
hilarious.
like, yeah, he did later on doing just bong rips. Like, you're a natural.
I loved the she's rolling with a bad crowd. Oh yeah, totally, dude. She's talking about us. What?
Yeah.
Really? Jesus.
Yeah.
So now,
Wait. No, that's it. That's all I had. Just Hopper Penn.
yeah, and this I actually made. I'm like, is his wife in the daughter's body? Question mark. And yes, we figured that out. And
But
this-
before they pick her up, like I thought for a while too, this is where I got confused. I was like, I don't know, because he was sort of having premonitions, like there was flash forwards from him when they did some hardcore fucking on the
coffee and banging.
yes,
Well, yeah, she's like, you want to come in for a cup of coffee? And he's like,
yeah,
He's like, well, yeah, why not?
and come in and just very like pretty graphic sex scene, I guess, for a fairly straight laced. Mainstream movie.
Well, I was not expecting that because
No.
I didn't really dig into what this movie was about. I knew it had an R rating. I saw that. I was like, oh, it's rated R. Okay. And then when I dug into IMDb after this scene, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, if you look at there's a little rating system. It's like rated R, sex and nudity, severe, violence and gore,
That gets me.
moderate.
That's I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah. Like,
I'm in.
I'm reading comments from people and they're like, I veered away from this movie when I realized it was all about sex. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, come on. This to me was a movie. Okay, remember when you were a kid and in the movie collection, you'd always have there'd be that one VHS tape from 1986 where it's just basically a skin movie. It's
Yeah.
like movie, what was that?
9.5 weeks.
Something like that where, you'd find those parts and they'd be all worn out because you're
Oh, yeah.
rewinding it and playing it again. And you're like, never wanted to watch it with your parents. Like, what's going on with this tape? I don't know. It's weird.
That's a guaranteed selling point when you're a kid. When you're like, what? That's what you look for. You're like, oh, is it mature rating and is there boobs in it? That's all. You're like, as an 11-year-old kid, you're like, should I watch this subtle movie about this intense romance between a man and a woman, and you're like, is there boobs in it?
Yep.
You're like, I'm watching this.
So I saw somebody's like, I veered away from it. I'm like, well, I'm in now, 100%. You got me. And yeah, so I was not expecting that.
You're like
but
an
it was
11-year-old boy still.
pretty much.
I am too.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't grow up. I read something the other day. It said the creative adult is the kid that survived. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, like
Boobs. I like that. Boobs. Is there skin in this? Oh, well, I want to see it. So yeah, 3 days later, they bring the daughter home and they put her in bed, and he's like, well, I got to get out here. I got to get the load to Biloxi. I don't know how many times he said get the load to Biloxi, but I was like...
Is Biloxi, that was the name of the mom?
Oh!
No!
She's here all week, folks. They got to get the load in Biloxi. And then, yeah, I'm like, you got to get it there still? You're a terrible truck driver.
Oh yeah,
Like,
three days later, you're like, aren't you guys supposed to be ripping speed and making cross country trips in 16 hours?
Because he had said before, he's like, I can't pay you. You know, truck driving's real slow right now. Then he's like, I can stay at the hospital and keep an eye on her. But I can get to Biloxi by tomorrow at noon if I stay for a couple hours. I'm like, you're not even that far away from Biloxi, dude. Go take the load there and then come back. Like that would work.
I would like to. There's a beautiful there's moments in this movie though that I was like Cage is making amazing choices. Like when the mom, this is the red flag moment. Mom's sitting down there she's got all the pills, and he's like, I don't know how you're gonna keep track of all those pills. And he looks at the bottle and he gives her a hug, gives her some loving parenting advice. You're a great parent. And as they're hugging, he takes the medicine, who knows what it is, in some red bottle, and he's drinking it just over her shoulder. I was like, so hilarious.
My guess on that, because I thought that, I was like, was he drinking cough syrup? Yeah. I remember a friend of mine 15 years ago was living in Medicine Hat, and he had a sore throat, and his doctor prescribed him codeine-laced cough medicine. And he brings it home, and after a day or two, he's like, man, this shit is strong. I'm like, can I have some? He's like, bottoms up, swig it out of the bottle. 20 minutes later, I'm like,
just
holy,
so great.
Apparently, they get that in the States, it's a big thing. I think they call it they call it lean.
Yeah.
Shots of codeine laced cough medicine.
Oh, you could throw that couple Jolly Ranchers in the bottom of your cup and just
pure sugar.
You can
and
still
heroin.
hot tip. You can still get the codeine cough syrup now, but they keep it behind the counter. And this is not, was this home RX? But but it is a great cough suppressant. So if you are sick, not with COVID, get the vaccine. But if you are sick and you need a cough suppressant, codeine does the trick.
And it just gets you mangled.
And if you throw some Jolly Ranchers in there, boom.
Watch Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, you're good. So this is where... so he goes to talk to his boss. His boss is like, I'm paying you minus the late fees.
Yeah.
And this, in the trivia, there's only 5 bits of trivia for this movie. But one of the bits of trivia was the boss, the actor that played the boss, ad-libbed the line, "You've been a boil on my ass this whole time." I'm like, why is that trivia worthy?
I think that's trivia worthy. That was probably that guy's greatest moment. I'm sure after that line was improvised and Cage was probably like, that was great.
That was
just
awesome.
High five.
That's on his demo reel.
That's totally.
You've been a boil on my ass. Between Worlds 2018.
Is that how you know? So there was 5 pieces of trivia for this movie, which leads me to believe it seems like the bigger a movie, the more of a cult following, or the more the longer the trivia list gets. So if you want to find out, if you look at a trivia list and there's less than 10 items on it, you could pretty much be assured it's a garbage movie.
Well, do you know what this movie got review-wise from the old Rotten Tomatoes? 32 from the critics, 82 from the viewers. What? Because I'm looking at it this way. There were points where I was laughing out loud at this movie. Seriously, I sent you that little snap of the later on, the dude with the gun.
Yes.
That writing is just fantastic.
Oh,
fantastically terrible. It's so bad. I'm going to bust it out later. Yeah, the trivia isn't even it wasn't even worthy to write down the other 5 because it was just, it's forgettable.
It was like nonsense stuff.
I can't even remember what it was.
Yeah, there are, because there's shining pearls in this movie. Like you could put together a great like sizzle reel, I think, for the movie and just clip beautiful moments. And it would be about 2.5 minutes long, and the rest of the 93 minutes is trash.
It's just
but-
all the sex scenes.
So that's
Read to me from memories, Joe.
Oh, so good. Like that stuff. I'm just like, I have to rewind. Whatever. We'll talk about it when we get there because that needs a little unpacking.
So he gets paid $18.68, gets a 20, gets told to keep the change. Buddy comes in and goes, Joe,
like
they're
he
taking your truck. Oh, yeah, nice little callback to keep the change. Like, whoa, it's so clever. Yeah, comes outside, Buddy's towing his truck. This was... So the guy towing his truck brought a sidekick. The sidekick was useless.
Yeah.
So Nicolas Cage comes walking up to him and just grabs him by the shirt collar and is like, "You're not taking my truck." And the sidekick just stands there the whole time with his hands behind his back. And the guy goes, whoa, hold on, bro. This is the part where I would normally tell you not to touch me because you're going to be sorry. And then my sidekick smash your face so hard that we got to find your teeth on the ground or something like that. And I'm like, well, why isn't he doing that?
Yeah.
He just manhandled you and your sidekick did nothing.
He should be telling that sidekick, like, whoa, do your fucking job. He's kicked my ass.
What are you doing, man? You're supposed to hit him. So that like even that, I'm like, there's no stakes here in this scene. Nothing.
And also the sidekick was like appeared to be, might have been the camera angle, was like smaller than the guy who was getting assaulted. I was like, he's not, like the sidekick's not 6'7", some huge brute. He's just like an average looking dude.
There for moral support, I guess.
That's right.
This is where Nicolas Cage, you can't take my truck. A man without a truck isn't a man. I guess we're not men,
No,
you and I.
no, I don't have a truck. I do not even own a bicycle.
I drive a sedan, a 4-door sedan.
Sensible.
It is, actually. The mileage is great, but I'm getting real tired of paying $70 to fill it up these days. It used to be like $45. That was back in the $1.18 days.
See, that's why I look now. I just want to get plastic bags. Whenever I drive up island and go to Mill Bay, I'm just like, I just fill up a garbage bag with gasoline and just be like, tie it up and be like, hopefully that's going to hold.
Do you watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia ever?
No, I have watched it. I have watched it though. It's good.
You remind me of that scene where the one episode where they're filling up garbage cans in the back of the van with no lids.
So good.
So she calls him, or he calls her, and she's like, "You can stay here with us." And he's like, "That would be a big help." And I think in the midst of this as well, I said, "This mom is terrible," because the other two guys, the two friends visit, and this is where she's like, "My daughter fell in with the wrong crowd," and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's terrible." And he's like, "Dude, she's talking about us." He's like, "Oh what?"
She fell in with the wrong crowd.
Bunch of assholes. She means us, Rick. Oh, really?
"Oh, okay, bro."
No way.
And then she's like, "Can we see her?" And she's like, "Whoop."
Yeah.
Takes their weed. 2 big bags of weed, like probably a good half ounce in those 2 bags.
I was thinking that's a good call. I was like, it looked like 2 quarters to me.
Yeah.
I was thinking,
we know our weed. And it's like, yeah, now you can visit her, not while she's on real drugs. I'm like, wow. Okay, she's kind of cool. I would have been asking for that weed back on the way out, though.
I also think, too, do you normally just walk with 2 bags of weed just sticking out of your top pocket like that? Is that
Not in a position where they could be pulled right out
Yeah.
like that. They're in the cargo pants, or at least. Excuse me.
Oh, excellent.
That was a good one.
But I did like, she also had this is where she starts to sort of think something's up with her daughter, like having some kind of talk with her, like, oh, you're not really yourself anymore. But that part, the mom took long enough for the mom to figure out. I think that was like, she was a little slow on the uptake.
She was really slow.
I mean, almost as slow as me.
Oh, wait, hold on. Before we get way too far, let's flash back to the hospital real quick. After she does go to the other side, get her daughter back, we do meet that nurse who's like, "You did a great job. Keep an eye on her.
Yeah.
She's not herself." And I'm like, even right there, you're like, she's telling you she's not herself.
Yeah.
She's not the same person she was 5 minutes ago. How'd she say, like, "You did a good job"? Did she? Does this nurse know that she has this magic power?
Well, the nurse saw her. That was one of the things. Like my wife had said, she goes, "Oh, well," because I had missed
You
that
made your
part.
wife watch this?
I know. Well, she didn't watch the whole thing. At one
okay.
point, she was just like, "I'm fucking out.
That's
I
fair.
can't
I wanted to do
this."
the same thing.
Yeah, you're like shit.
I have to do this.
But I do. Yeah, she goes, "Oh no, the nurse because of course she's a mystical nurse. Or whatever, and she saw her in the room. So when she was in the room as a spirit, the nurse could sense her presence or knew she was in there. So she's like, "Oh, yeah, I see you. You are a spirit soul traveler too."
You're one of those, huh? All right, I've seen you before. Good work. Come on.
Yeah, and good work, but not good work because your daughter's possessed now.
So yeah, she's making these two out to be like horrid little boys.
Yeah.
I'm like, they just ride motorcycles. They're not murderers.
And they did
Easy.
seem, he's like, no one can keep up with Billy. It's like your daughter is an amazing motorbike rider, whatever that means.
And she's a horrible influence on the two of us.
Yeah.
Just so you know, lady.
Is that what he
Julie.
said? Did he say
No,
that?
that's what he should
That's
have
what you-
said, though. That's what I was saying out loud. I'm like, she's the worst
Yeah.
one.
She's the one driving them to do dangerous stuff. Like, you can't keep up, you pussies, and like ride away on her bike. And they're like, oh man, she's going to get hurt.
We don't want to zigzag through traffic.
Yeah, because they don't seem like, and there's not enough backstory for those guys necessarily. They just don't seem like badasses. They just seem like kind of like generally nice guys, nice kids.
The one guy deals pot, she says. He's
Yeah.
a pot dealer. I'm like,
Which-
oh, God.
Which is not horrible at all. In fact, that's a bonus. You just got some free weed, lady. You pulled it right out of his pocket.
Oh, and what state did we say they're in?
Alabama?
Is it legal in Alabama? I want to look that up. It might be.
There's There's probably 47 states that it's
a
legal
lot.
in, and there's 3 that you'll.
Alabama seems like the kind of place where it's still
Yeah, yeah.
illegal.
Yeah, but
can't-
you get oxy. You just walk in, you're like, ooh, it's getting my knee, and they're like, there's some oxy for you.
Some codeine-laced cough medicine? You sound kind of raspy there, friend.
Totally. I'd like some marijuana. Hang them.
Get down on the ground. So yeah, then she keeps. So the kids go and visit her. Blah blah blah. And like, you don't remember anything? I was expecting her to seduce the two of them, and it was going to be because like when I read this was all a sex movie, I was like, yeah, come on, tag team, come on, threesome. Nope. And then it's the next scene is them smoking the stolen weed.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, you kept it. You're evil. And I made a comment to myself that Nick Cage's stoned laugh
Yeah.
was ridiculous.
What? Can you do an impression of it?
It was
Let's hear it.
it was really
That's pretty good because they do make in movies. They kind of make being stoned like you've lost your mind on 20 hits of acid. Yeah. No,
It was
it's
so ridiculous. Nobody gets like you get high like that your first time, your first couple
then
times.
you're chasing that for the rest of your life.
Basically, yeah. Till you smoke California weed and black out on the condo floor. I did that.
Oh, that sounds great.
Pinhole vision, man. I could barely see anything. I had to lay on the floor for
Oh,
like 10 minutes
just
just going, what the fuck? Ah.
Just completely green out.
I hadn't smoked weed for 2 weeks. I was up north, and then my buddy and I met in San Diego for my week off, and we got I managed to get a weed card. I did an interview with a doctor over Skype, which was hilarious. He was just sitting in his living room like, hey man, what can I do for you? I'm like, you're a doctor? All right, cool. So I told him my whole story, and he's like, well, you're a good candidate for medical marijuana, man. So they gave me the email, and then they sent me my card before I left. It was hilarious. I had a legal medical license for a year in California. But we ordered some weed, and we got some super strong Gorilla Glue indica. And like, man, halfway through the joint, I was like, fuck, I'm feeling this already. Finished the joint, and I lit up, I was still smoking at the time, lit up a cigarette. And like a minute later, I was like, holy shit. We're talking to this dude in the parking lot, and I'm looking at Tyler like, I think I might have to go lay down for a second. And this guy's like, oh shit, I got on top of you, didn't it? I'm like, man, Frank, it's a pleasure meeting you. It's been I gotta go. By the time I got to the end of the fence, like walked back to the condo, I like pinhole vision. Like all I hear is whoop, 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 whoop. I'm like, dude, just get me inside. I like hanging off the door. I just laid down on the floor and just like, holy, sweating. 10 minutes later, I was like, okay, I can get up now. It was crazy.
That's awful. That's why I can't smoke weed anymore because anytime it feels like that's gonna come rolling down. I haven't been that high since high school.
No, well, I
But
hadn't been
that's
that high since the first time I actually got high from weed. It took me like 7 times smoking before I got high.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time, like, oh, I need to go to the bathroom, like over the toilet, like almost throwing up, then laying on the bathroom floor, then eventually getting up and going, like, this is what weed is? I don't know if I like this. And now,
It is funny because the first few times you smoke it, nothing happens, and you're like, I think I'm am I high? This is, I think I am. And then when you actually get high for the first time, you're like, whoa, this is what I'm high.
Terrifying. Okay. But yeah, I think California, they're making that weed. They're just trying to kill people.
Yeah. I go in, I have gone in and looked for weed. I'm like, what do you have that has the most highest CBD relaxation and the lowest, I want 2% THC.
Relaxation and no psychoactivity.
Yes, yeah, totally.
So we're 41 minutes into this movie, and this is where Billy starts to seduce Joe. And
Can we also, when she comes home, after they're smoking weed, she goes, no, you can't. I don't date anyone while my daughter's here.
oh yeah,
And then he starts pulling his clothes off. Then they're fucking.
I like to sleep in the nude.
They're fucking on the couch, and Billy is just watching them from behind the. There's lots of Billy. There's lots of psycho shots of Billy just doing crazy stuff. Who's actually, I guess Jeff knew immediately.
Mary
is Mary.
And she's not like she's like peeking around the corner. She's full on in the doorway,
Yeah.
like shoulders square to them. Neither of them see her. I'm like, oh, is she asleep? And like, no, she's standing right there 8 feet away from you idiots.
Yeah.
Yeah, they bang. And then she starts seducing. So how does she start seducing him though?
Well, they go out. They
hold
go out to the truck. They're working on the truck the next day. And then Cage, she's wandering around the house looking pretty hot, actually.
Oh, braless.
yeah.
Just a pair of panties on.
I was like, that role required a lot of skill.
Did.
And then Cage comes back in and has a couple of just great lines. I thought, fantastic. I gotta go train the mainframe. and he walks
Written by a woman, guys.
and walks by. Billy is naked in front of the mirror,
Holding up some lingerie.
trying on a dress like this, and he walks by and looks and then quickly scuttles to the washroom and scuttles back. She's and Julie, that was the other great line. She goes, would you like a beer? He goes, does the Tin Man have a sheet metal cock?
Which made me think, like, is this woman wrote this Canadian? Because that's like a line from Trailer Park Boys.
Oh, I've never.
Bubbles, you want to smoke some weed? Does a Tin Man have a sheet metal cock?
I had to write that down. I was like, that is great.
Oh, that was a classic line. Yeah, so it's here. This is where she starts seducing them. They're sitting on the couch, and it's like hand on the leg, then hand up the leg, and it's like, damn. It's like, oh, Billy, can you come help me with dinner? No, I'm sick. Just gonna sit here for a while, and then she gives him a hand job under the blanket.
Yeah.
He does not protest at all, which is where I made the comment. What did his wife look like? Because he's put it together that he's kind of onto it that it's not Billy, because he has said like, oh, maybe she got hit on the head, maybe she thinks she's someone else because she's really into me.
Yeah,
she thinks that
we
go way back.
Yeah, he's told her at that point, like
That's when
he
they're
knows
smoking weed.
she's crazy.
And she's like, oh, that can't be.
That
Whatever.
is a hilarious scene because he looks so uncomfortable. And she's behind. What was she making for dinner?
It looked like a small dog.
Yeah, that's what I wrote. Was it a dog, cat, or rabbit? I wasn't sure.
It didn't look like a pig. And we only saw a quick shot of it. I was like, what is that? It looked like a dog.
And it was it's Alabama, it's a very, very poverty-ridden state.
Yeah, maybe they need
You
to
just go out and wrang some cats in. You're like, we're eating well tonight. But there's a couple scenes. That was one of them was hilarious because he's just looking super nervous on the couch and she's like, he's like, I could come help.
Yeah.
She's like, no, it's fine.
Yeah, what'd you ask for help for then? Oh, he's wanted to bond with your daughter. I get it. Parents. And then he's fixing the bike.
Mm-hmm.
He's fixing the bike in the next scene, and this is where the Mary and Julie are talking, and she's basically telling her like, oh, your husband left you, blah, blah, blah. I remember everything. I'm like, how do you remember everything? But then she was listening to Billy in the soul room or whatever it was. I don't know.
In the soul world?
Purgatory?
That's
I guess?
what-
In purgatory? Yeah, so she got all the information from there. And I just wrote this down. How many wristbands was Nicolas Cage wearing? I didn't notice at first.
I didn't notice any.
It was almost, oh man. He was wearing on one hand, he had 6 wristbands. Like it looked like he was straight out of Vancouver Island.
Oh, that's great.
Just hippied right up. I was like, oh, didn't notice those at first. So I'm thinking he maybe just added them in at some point.
because his costume, I think, all came from Nicolas Cage's wardrobe. Because there was
personal clothes.
some of it was like the hat that he's wearing in the beginning. It says "Turkey and the Wolf," and I was like, that has to be symbolic of something to do with the movie. And then I looked it up. I was like, oh, Turkey and the Wolf is just a New Orleans, very famous diner where Nicolas Cage lives in New Orleans. So I was like, oh, so I feel like he just turned up on set. Was like, I've got all these great clothes for the character.
And they're like, sure, just wear it's Nicolas Cage. Let him wear whatever he wants. We don't want him to walk
Well,
out of this.
90% of your budget is going to pay for Nicolas Cage. So it is a Nicolas Cage movie. So whatever Nick wants to do, Nick's gonna do.
I want to know how much this movie cost.
I tried to follow the director on Instagram, but she has no Instagram profile because I was like, oh, I was gonna see if she wanted to Skype in for this complete slandering of her movie.
She's like, oh yeah, I know, it's awful. You guys are. She's like, yeah, I got some more points for you. So he tells the fire story now. So we get a little backstory about his family. And I guess his wife was smoking in bed when he was gone on a 3-day run to take the stuff to Biloxi. And yeah, she dropped a cigarette in bed, lit the whole place on fire, burned her and her daughter. It's pretty tragic, actually.
Yeah.
And
yes. R.I.P.
And then he mentions that he can't get his personal effects back from his truck unless he pays $500, which is like a photo of him and his wife and daughter, a necklace, a wedding ring, and like a couple of things.
Wedding ring? I was like, no, this is a wedding ring.
Fuck you. So she goes and pays the $500, and while she's gone, this is where Billy is like, I'm your wife.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. Because she's laying out all sorts of information that he's like, what?
Calls him, that was the Majors.
Yeah.
Says, yeah.
This is like
why you always leave me Majors? Don't call me that. And then he says, oh, what about the daughter's name was Sarah? Like, just keeps dropping a bunch of stuff that there's no way she could have known it. Totally. And that's what convinces him that he should fuck her right there.
Oh, and they do. And he is so awkward when Julie gets back. Oh, hey, nothing happened. Nothing happened at all. Where's Billy? I think she's sleeping. I'm not sure. He won't even look her in the eye.
At that moment, you're like, she had to have known, like she knew something. Because she goes, is that soon after that scene that she goes and visits the mystical nurse again?
It's coming here pretty close because, my next note. Oh, she has a dream first. She has this creepy dream he's like soaking her with the hose on the motorcycle. That was actually pretty funny.
That was brilliant. There's a couple, that's one moment that I was like, that's one of those great moments. You're like, this is what the whole movie should have been.
Just a fever dream. It probably was. Because I thought this was real. I'm like, whoa, he's just hamming it up with his daughter here. What is going on? Oh, she's sleeping. Okay. And then, she goes to see the voodoo nurse again on her break. Like, there's no phone call. There's no, hey, I need to see you. There's no connection of why they know each other. This is one of those scenes where I was like, how did she get here?
She's smoking in the thing and just on the window.
Come on in.
And she's like, oh, hey.
Smoking in the car. There's no smoke in the car. I'm like, I used to smoke in the car. It's disgusting. That should be
That's right.
like hot box in there. Ugh. And then we get a sex montage,
which was amazing. That
great.
was the one. I was watching this about 7:00 at night in my house, so there's still lots of kids running around and things like that. And I was like, turn the volume down. I was like, ooh,
don't come in here. Don't come in here.
But it was, how long did you? It had to have been almost as long as the Frozen Lake.
Yeah, I'd say it was up to 2.5, 3 minutes.
Now
they were banging in different rooms, reading from the Book of Memories.
Which was written by?
Was it him?
Nicolas Cage. So
Seriously?
that was the most fucked up thing about. He starts reading an erotic novel called Memories as they're fucking in the can. And when I looked at it, and I was like, who's the author on that? And it says Memories by Nicolas Cage, and he's reading it.
Oh, I did not see that.
Yeah, it is. That was the most wild thing about it. I had to actually rewind it, not just because they were having sex, but to be like, is that say? And it's like, yeah, and it's an erotic novel by Nicolas Cage, and I was like, is this a real thing? And it's not. It was just done for the movie.
Oh,
I know.
To read it. I need to know. And then, oh my goodness. So this is where she catches them. She catches them and he's like, oh, Julie, hang on. He comes walking into the kitchen and they focus on what I thought were his balls.
What?
Well, at first I'm like, were those his balls? And then he follows her into the other room, and they show it again, and I'm like, wait, it can't be because they're like black and white. He's just wearing really tiny nut hugging undies, like really, man. Like I thought it was
Like just banana hammock, full on.
That can't be comfortable. It just can't be comfortable.
Because what does she say
put
to
on
him?
some pants.
She goes, "You're disgusting. You disgust me." And he's like, "Oh, I don't know what made you say what? You have to be so mean."
Why?
But he says almost naturally, like she catches them fucking, but she knows at this point that her daughter's not her daughter, and he's like, "But it's my wife is inhabiting your daughter, so like, I mean, it's not. What are you gonna do? It's not bad. It's not really your daughter. It's
just your daughter's body. I mean, it's my wife's
your daughter's hot body."
And at this point, Mary comes in and just cracks Julie in the head with a frying pan. She's
Everything
like, we got to split.
Everything ramps up super fast for the last 15 minutes of the movie. It goes a little nuts.
This was an hour and 4 minutes in where we see what I thought were his balls.
You made sure note. Timestamp that.
Yeah. And then we just cut. She's like, I know where we're going to go. Cut to the two pothead kids hanging out in their underwear.
Yeah.
Have you ever in your life just been chilling out in your underwear in the house? Me neither.
I gotta say, I do chill out a lot in the underwear at my house, but not when I live with a bunch of dudes. Like no one, get some jogging pants like a normal person.
Sweatpants, shorts.
Yeah.
Those are normal hanging out of the house attire.
And they had it was funny because it was like the set deck guy must have had fun because it was just beer cans and about a half dozen or 12 bongs just placed all over the
many bongs.
Do you guys get it yet? These guys are stoners and they like to party. Do you get
Their house looks like a heroin den. It's disgusting. So she shows up. She's like, "Oh, hey guys, what's going on?" Seems so weird. And then they're so high they don't even. They're like, "Oh, there's food in the fridge. Go ahead." And they're just zoned out. She opens the door. Nick Cage busts in with a baseball bat, smashes the one kid, and then completely misses the other guy from 2 feet away. And Buddy pulls out a gun because most pot dealers have guns.
packing heat? This isn't Alabama though, so I'm like,
Oh, it might be an open carry state.
I
I should have looked it up. Damn it. I don't know. And they get in a tussle and he shoots the kid. And he's like, "Oh no. Oh, he's dead. Oh."
I didn't understand what the motivation was for them to go. Like I knew at this point Billy Mary is evil.
They needed money.
Okay.
Because she's like, "We got to split. We need money. I know where we're going to go." Because she somehow knows that these dudes have money.
And
so
why would she know where they lived? She doesn't.
that's another one of those things where it's like, this doesn't make any sense at all.
Right.
You're just there. Like, you didn't get all that information from Billy in her coma when she was hanging out in the soul room.
And my boyfriend, he lives at 1248 Oak Street.
His friend deals weed, you know. They have a
Lots of money.
ton of cash. Most weed dealers have cash on hand, but still. Yeah, so they get there, shoot him, and he's like, okay. She's like, well, it was either him or you.
And it wasn't at all either him or you. It was like you probably just could have come in there, been mildly threatening, and they would have handed everything over. It's when you came in there swinging a bat like a fucking psycho that he's like, shit.
Could be like, listen, you sell some weed and, I don't know, maybe like score us a couple $100? We need a couple $100. Yeah, of course. You're my friend. Here, take it. Now we cut to Julie, and another just great piece of acting here. She's like on the phone with 911. Oh, 911? Yes, my daughter's missing. She's not. Oh, never mind. She's here. And she like hangs up. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Huh? I don't know if you can do that with 911. Can you?
No.
They have to investigate.
No. Yeah,
something,
they send someone. They call you back immediately, and they send 9 police cars to wherever the call came from.
Actually, funny story though. My coworker was over on the other side of like Mill Bay side, and his girlfriend's mom. Like, I guess she coughs every now and then. She has a narrow esophagus. So she started coughing at like dinner. And she's like, "Oh, no, she's fine. She's fine." And like 30 seconds later, he goes, "Are you sure she's fine? She's choking." And she's like, "Oh my God, get the kids upstairs. Call 911. And he called 911 and he's upstairs. He comes running downstairs. He goes, "I don't know your address." She's like, "Oh, she's fine now." She's like, "Are we good?" And she's like, yeah, she's fine. She's fine. Because she like gave her the Heimlich maneuver and got it out of there. And she's on the phone and going, "Apparently we're good now." And the cop's like, 911 operator's like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, yeah. Are we sure we're good?
Is she? Oh, yeah, we're good. There's nothing to do here.
Like, apparently they're like, no, she's fine. Like, okay, because it's like Shawnigan Lake, so I think there's
Yeah.
one ambulance kind of thing. They're like, all right, well, they say they're fine, so we're not gonna worry about it.
But it's hilarious. Someone starts joking, and you're like, you're like, Mom's got a narrow esophagus.
Yeah,
She'll be fine.
It's a normal. This is
She's just gonna snake that down.
This is par for the course. Just wash it down with some more food. I actually worked with a guy who his dad would like, because when you take too big of a bite, you swallow, you're like, oh, this is how it ends. And you wash it down with a little water, and it usually works. I guess his dad would wash it down with more food.
Like, just get in the fork and just start cramming like it's a musket in your front end load.
No better feeling when that food gets dislodged and goes down. You're like, oh, thank God, I'm not dying today.
How embarrassing.
You ever watched I Think You Should Leave on Netflix?
No, is it?
Tim Robinson sketch comedy.
Oh, yes.
There's that one sketch where he's like, is that famous dude? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, oh my God. And he eats a piece of steak and he starts choking. And he's like, dude, are you choking? He's like, no, I'm fine. He chokes through the whole scene because he's embarrassed.
And that is a good, that's a great joke. But that's how I took a first aid course, and they were like, they're like, true story is just everyone who dies of choking dies in the restaurant washroom because they get embarrassed. And they get up and they leave and they go to the washroom and then choke to death.
Wow.
And so they're like, if you see anyone choking, get up to go to the washroom. Like, you need to follow that person immediately. You're going to save someone's life.
That's a PSA right there.
That's right.
I had no idea. Good to know.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, back to this movie anyway.
Okay.
So they kill this kid, and then so she's on the phone. She's like, no, my daughter's fine. She's here. And this is when Mike busts in with a gun. Gun, just like, sit the fuck down. Sit down, bitch. I'm like, why are you getting mad at the mom all of a sudden? Like, why'd your daughter and your boyfriend break in and rob us? She's like, I don't know. Yeah, you know. And he's like, no, I don't. And then like her reaction is just terrible. Like,
Well, she's so, you can't read any emotion off her.
there's none. She's like, listen, I'm going to tell you, but it's a crazy story. Tells him the whole stupid story. Yeah. Meanwhile, Mary and Joe are going back to the house that burned down that it's apparently been rebuilt and nobody lives in.
But not rebuild because there's stuff still not there, but it's not burnt down. But
So it's almost like the house did and didn't burn down. Like maybe just the bedroom burnt.
Right.
But they didn't condemn it. They didn't destroy it. Just seems a little too weird.
Yeah.
Again, that's one of those things like, why isn't this explained?
Well, they had an abandoned house, and they're like, I bet you we can shoot at this abandoned house for free without any permits. It's super cheap.
That's why it's at night. They just went in there at night and did it. Nobody knows they're there. So they go there, and so Mike believes the whole story. I don't know why he would believe the story.
And
It's pretty crazy.
His line's like, and I think it's at this point that he's like, so just using your daughter, like just inside her like a hermit crab? Is that, I don't know why.
And then he's like, okay, well, what do we do? And this is where the mom's like, well, you have to choke me. Cut to the next scene.
Yeah.
Like, good God. It's the third time she said that. It's like this woman who wrote this is like, oh, I'm going to have the best line in this movie.
Choked.
Yeah. I think this Maria What's-Her-Face likes to be choked. She's like, I should write a movie about this. And I don't know. So this is where I started to think that Nicolas Cage was literally getting drunk for this because he started to slur his words and everything was kind of rum.
He's very method.
Sounds like Boomhauer. All right, we're drinking. Go to the house. I'm looking at this picture here, man.
Because he is not. They go back to the house. What is he? He sets up the stars for. Says, "Oh, I would," and she's crazy at this point, like completely batshit crazy.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, he's not understandable at all when he sits next to her on the couch. Just no.
And this is where, again, how do they find them? Julie and Mike find this house, the house that they used to live in.
I didn't even think of that.
No.
Of course. How did they find them?
That was my first thought was, how the hell did you two find the house that these two strangers you don't know lived in years ago?
And who knows where? Like not in the same town, 9 hours away. We have no idea.
Nope. No explanation at all. And they show up there, and this is where my favorite line. This, I legit was sitting on the couch laughing my ass off. I rewound it 4 times. I recorded it and sent it to you.
Yeah.
They're sitting on the couch, and Mary goes, what? What? And Joe goes, huh? I thought I heard something. And this is where Mike comes in and goes,
That was your conscience and it thinks you're a piece of shit. Fuck!
it's your conscience, and it thinks you're a piece of shit.
That's right.
I'm going to cut it in right here. It's so good. It's just gold.
It just, and I watched it on repeat. It just got funnier and funnier every time I saw. I was like in tears laughing.
And it thinks you're a piece of shit.
That's your conscience, and it thinks you're a piece of shit. And he's like, "Oh man, he attacked me, dude, or he followed me." I'm like, "What?"
And it does have a whole element of this is probably the sort of final showdown point where I was like, it feels like community theater a little bit. Like it had a very community theater kind of vibe. Like I was like, still like, if you went and saw this in your town, like if you went to Salmon Arm and you were like, "Oh, great, I'm going to watch some theater," you'd be like, "That was really good, you guys." But for a Hollywood movie, you're like, "Oh, I think you should do better."
Don't tell her how bad it is. This is where the wife, Mary, reveals that she actually killed their daughter. Didn't really explain why.
No. Well, something, she's crazy, and she said, "I don't do well without you, and I wanted you to come home and find us." So I think her psychotic plan was like to set the house on fire, and he would come home. She would still be alive, and then he would never leave her again. I don't know.
But like, she didn't explain what day it was. Like he said he was gone for 3 days delivering the load, and it could have been day one. Like he's not going to come back right away and see her.
And also, she did a very bad job of ensuring her own. I mean, still horrible thing to do, but very bad job of ensuring her own safety.
And why burning? Burning is so painful. Like that's just got to be agony, as we find out here a little
That's
later. Right. And then all of a sudden, now he's hearing dead people because he's hearing his daughter, and he's like,
"Oh, he's lost it by this point. He's
Sarah! 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 Sarah, baby! Sarah! Sarah! I'm like, whoa, Nick.
He just goes full Cage,
pouring it on, just like the gasoline right after this.
So what happened? Because does Julie goes to attack Billy, and Billy shoots Julie in the stomach. To go to the other side?
Yep.
Is that why did Julie get shot in the stomach?
As a result, she goes to the other side. I don't think she meant to get shot. She maybe did. We don't know because she dies.
And then how does she get...
She just goes to the other side, and all of a sudden Mary's like, "No, you can't get me back here." And then Sarah's like, "You came back for me, Mommy. You came back." And then it's like, wow, we cut back to the other scene, and there's Billy like
magically back in her body.
Mom, what's going on? Like there's no strategy or method to how she does it. It's just random.
But it's one of those things. It's like as the writer or as the person, like, this is what has to happen. It's like, how are we going to get there? It's like, let's not worry about it. Let's just make that all happen.
Like, what if instead of Billy coming back into that body, it was like the spirit of some necrophiliac murderer? All of a sudden he's like, "Oh, hey, dead body. Perfect."
Or what if it was Hopper Penn because he was hanging around his buddy and then he's like, "Dude,
yeah.
What happened?
I'm Billy. Oh, look at this. I got tits. I got a vagina. Oh, my God. That's what this movie should have been called. Between Two Vaginas. Basically, it wasn't between worlds. It was between vaginas. And then he's like, Julie's dead. Billy's back. And then he just sets himself on fire.
Yeah, which was I had to say one of the coolest, because he's got the Jack in the Box thing that I guess was his daughter's toy. We assume was his daughter's toy, and they're creepy as fuck. He's like, Sarah, and there's a tub of gasoline there, not a tub, a
jerry can.
A jerry can of gasoline. They just, it's like milk, good in your
Put some
cereal.
gasoline on that milk.
And just starts dumping it on himself, which is so. I thought it was a pretty great. I was all in at this point for the movie, and then he pulls out a cigarette,
lights it. Like if you're on fire,
yeah,
you're not. I think you're gonna scream a little bit.
Oh, even so, watching, and the fire effects were bad. Like we're talking VHS. Odyssey fire.
Style.
Yeah, this was like, but the fact he was so calm, because which this is horrific, but even that picture of that monk in Vietnam who set himself on fire to protest the Vietnam War.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, so there's
I haven't seen that.
Well, it's just a photograph, and it's a pretty impactful photograph because he's sitting in the lotus position and he's completely engulfed in flames, and he's to protest the Vietnam War. And people are like, "Oh, how do you tolerate that? Like tons of meditation. You know, he's a dedicated monk." But even that cat, people are like, "Yeah," and you should have seen him, 20 seconds after that photo was taken, and he's screaming in fucking agony because burning to death is the most, no matter how much you meditate, is the most horrible thing in the world.
Dude, I spend some time like up in Newton Heights burning, like in these woods. Like I'll bring out dead stuff and I set fires. The other day I had a fire going, like I was 8 feet away from it, like trying to reach in and grab something. I was like, oh God. I felt like my hair was getting singed off. I was like, I couldn't imagine jumping into that.
Oh no.
Because it's going to take minutes. Like your insides have to boil and explode before you die. It's not instant death. It's agony.
I can't even, have you seen Fury? With Brad Pitt,
yes.
And there's that one scene in Fury which I had watched. They explode the tank and the guy gets thrown off the tank, and even in that moment he's on fire. It's like he could still probably be saved, but he manages to pull out his sidearm and kill himself because he's like, "Oh fuck this!"
Yeah, that would be my. But he's on fire and he's cold as ice at the same time. Like takes the smoke.
I know.
Puts it out on his chest. He's like, come on.
And Billy and Mike run from the house.
That isn't catching on fire.
Yes. Well,
this must be like a fireproof house.
And that's and it's going to be there. Maybe they could just move in there later on. They just sweep it up. And
well, nobody's living here. We're just going to sweep out the ashes. and then the credits start to roll, but then we get a quick flashback to Joe shooting his dad. But hey, you had mentioned trigger discipline there on the last episode you were on here with, and I was like, trigger discipline. Doesn't have his finger on the trigger. He's like,
that's right.
Do it, punk. Do it. And he's, and then it fires. I'm like, his finger didn't even move.
I don't understand.
That was a useless scene.
What the fuck that scene was in there for? I thought we were going to get bloopers when the credits rolled up, and I was like, oh, great, we're going to get 5 minutes of Nicolas Cage and the other actors and bloopers. And instead, it was this weird scene. I was like, what was the point of that?
It was totally useless. It would have made more sense to give us that in the middle of the movie to give us a little bit of context for who Joe Majors is. I
feel like there was some shit went awry in the editing room.
Yeah, this movie was bad.
There was some the one thing I did like about this movie, I have to say, is Nicolas Cage. I enjoyed his performance being Nicolas Cage so much. So there was this quote. I was like looking around, Googling Nicolas Cage, and an interview in Collider magazine. He goes, he approaches all his roles. He's not an actor. He doesn't act anymore. He said, I don't like acting. I don't really act. I like to consider all the movies I'm in. I like to consider it as being a shamanic performance artist is something I aspire to. And I was like, that explains everything.
Well, 106 credits to his name.
Yeah.
He's just caging it up.
And he's got, he did say, and I know we shit on the director a lot, and it's great. We need more women in film, blah, blah, blah. But he did say, so it's like, what? He's assuming the movie is good, I think, when he makes this quote. But he goes, with the movie, my full inspiration will be working with the director. She's unlike anyone I've ever met before. She's truly a unique and gifted personality who seemed to have a very clear vision and almost raunchy yet heartfelt comical approach to the way she wanted to use me and whatever my abilities were in the movie. So I would have to give her full credit for whatever influences were channeled.
Interesting.
It's just like...
Yeah, we were kind of dumping on her, but I will say, I don't have any, I've never made a film, so bravo.
That's right.
You've done more than I have. You made 3 more movies than I have, so good on you. You know, they're not all going to be gems like I was saying. Not every episode of this podcast is gold. A lot of it's garbage.
Real garbage.
Real garbage. What'd you real rate this?
My real rating, oh shit, I've got it here. My real rating, okay, what? I'm going to give it 8. I'm going to give it 8 savage baseball bat swings out of 10 Jack in the Boxes.
Wow.
Spooky Jack in the Boxes. I like
8 out of 10.
Yeah,
Damn. I gave it 3 pairs of ball hugging undies out of 10 loads to Biloxi. Because it wasn't
10
brutal.
loads in Biloxi.
10
No.
loads in Julie. because it wasn't brutal. Like it wasn't great. The writing was brutal. It had potential to be really cool. Because this kind of reminded me, like I said earlier, it kind of reminded me of a movie from the 80s or the 90s. Like there were a lot of movies kind of along this line, like this sort of thriller type movie that I watched when I was a kid. This is a movie I could definitely see myself watching when I was younger, going like, oh man, this is crazy. This isn't meant for me, but I'm going to watch it anyway.
When they actually made it 30 years after they should have made it, it doesn't hold up.
It does not.
But there was a point in it when I was like, when I was like, oh, it sort of reminds, it's kind of like going for a David Lynch kind of vibe, which it didn't, it just had at moments. And then later on, the director, I did read something where she was like, oh, I want it to be like a David Lynch type movie. I was like, oh, you succeeded at very small points, but you did succeed having that, because I definitely had that thought. And Nicolas Cage has been, he's worked with Lynch, Wild at Heart.
Oh,
so good.
I would like to see this director work with a different writer. Like I know she wrote it too. I think maybe she just took on a little too much. Like this was I think when you write something, it's like jokes, right? When you write something and you hold it, you're like, man, this is a favorite joke. I really like this joke. It's really hard to detach yourself from it and look at it critically and go, oh, this needs to change. Maybe I'll get rid of that and get rid of this and maybe try something different. It's really hard to do that. So I could see writing a movie, producing it, and directing it all. You're not really open to somebody going like, hey, maybe try a little different, try this, try that. And I think that's just something you learn as you go.
Well, you need a lot of directors, which I have no idea because I've never worked on a film ever. But having someone like a good DOP and a good no man beside you, right? Like someone who could be like, okay, no, this is shit.
Yeah.
Because there was points too where I feel like both actors, Nicolas Cage and Franca, the girl from Run Lola Run, and even Billy, the lady who played Billy.
What's her name? Not Penelope?
Yeah, Penelope.
I think
something. And I feel like they're good actors, but there's a lot that a director can do, and sometimes knowing when you've got the shot that you need, or cutting it together in a way where you can make people who aren't maybe bringing their 100%, you can make it feel like it in the final product, I think, which is what the goal.
I think with experience, she'll get better at that. Like telling, I think it's kind of hard to tell an actor to go like, as a director, to go, hey, I'm not getting what I want out of you in this scene. This is what I want. Like in those, like I'd mentioned, she was reading her lines like Christopher Walken with no punctuation. She wasn't pausing when there needed to be pauses. She wasn't letting stuff sink in. Like there was one scene, I can't remember what she said, but she delivered a line, and I know she was supposed to go, and then, well, but she just went, and then, well,
And you're like, that didn't convey.
Her eyes were looking like, and then, well, it's like, well, no, you need to go, and then, well.
But it would be so scary. You have to have maybe that is the thing too with the director. You have to have a who's that? I can't remember his name. David O. Selznick? No, that's not it. David O. Russell. You have to have a massive ego, I think, as a director to understand what you want. Because would be a very difficult thing to give a line reading to someone like Nicolas Cage, or even like that actress, actor, to be like, no, why don't you try it like this? They just go, I think that was good. That was good. You just go, yeah, whatever you think. You gotta. I don't know if you've seen that David O. Russell. He's getting mad at the actor Lucille. Who was in oh shit, I can't. Anyways, big name actor, and he has this total blowout with her, but he's not getting the performance that he wants. And he's this like young upstart shit director, but it's like his movies are good and he knows what he wants, and you have to have that kind of ego, I think.
Totally. Because if you have a vision, you know what you want, you have to just learn to tell people what you want. And tell them you're not satisfied when you're not satisfied.
Yeah.
It's basically what it is. And that's what I felt like a lot of this movie was, where I think they maybe were on a time crunch, or maybe the budget wasn't big enough for them to have more time to play around. Or they just kind of went like, all right, we got it. Let's go. Next scene.
And
it
also
seemed like that.
I think Nicolas Cage kind of calls his shots. When you're getting funded, like 100%, the reason that movie gets made and gets money is because Nicolas Cage is in that movie. And Nicolas Cage knows that the reason this movie is getting made because he's Nicolas Cage and he's in it. So he's like, if I want to do something crazy, like just whatever, just do some, woo! He's like, he's gonna do it, and you can't really, yeah, exactly. And you can't be like, I think that's a little insane, Nick. Do you want to rein it in? You're like, he's like, no, I think that's good.
Perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. Let's just keep going.
You're like, oh, okay,
All right, let's wrap it up there.
okay.
Thank you for coming on again. Once again, that was a blast. Tell everybody where they can find you.
I'm on Instagram at dmiller101. And then, of course, the Ill Informers podcast. You can download that. You can see it on YouTube. There's Facebook and stuff like that out there as well.
Subscribe to it. Like it.
That's
do
right.
everything.
Do all that stuff.
Because it's good for the algorithm. Same with this. Follow us on, I don't know, wherever you follow your podcast. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit like or hit dislike. Doesn't matter. Either one. It sets the algorithm, and it helps me get more subscribers and viewers because that's what I want.
Yeah. This is fun. Thanks for having me, man.
Hey, man, always a pleasure. Right on.
Excellent.
Take care, everybody.
You can find Darren Millar on the Ill Informers podcast with Elliot Ryan and Nash Park. These guys are hilarious. Give them a follow. Subscribe to them. Throw up a like. Show us some love. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you guys in the next episode of Real Garbage.
Real garbage.